Hi everybody and welcome back to Heimler's History Economics Edition. For the last few videos we've been talking about supply and demand and how these market forces in an unregulated market will eventually meet at a magical happy town called equilibrium. And at equilibrium the quantity supplied equals quantity demanded and everybody's happy. Now it'd be great and all if we always had an unregulated market, but every now and then Big Daddy Gub'ment steps in and hawks a giant regulatory loogie all over equilibrium by introducing price floors and price ceilings. And although those price controls can sometimes help some people, in general it gets real ugly. So let's talk about it. Alright, so as I mentioned before, sometimes the government doesn't like the market to do its own thing and so will introduce price controls. Sometimes Daddy says that prices can't go above a certain level and that's called a price ceiling. And other times Daddy says that prices can't go below a certain level and that's called a price floor. And as my grandpappy always used to say, you might be able to hog tie a pig real good, but that ain't gonna keep it from squealing. Alright, let me tell you a story. Back in 2012, Hurricane Sandy tore up and down America's eastern seaboard, causing nearly $70 billion in damage. And one of the first things people decided to do was show up to the gas station and fill up their cars and get enough to run their generators at home. Now in an unregulated market, you know by now that if demand for a good rises sharply like that, then what happens to the price? Well, it increases. And if you're a gas station owner, here's what you know, that the next day when you open your store, the hordes of people who have no gas in their car and no electricity at home will show up at your store demanding gas. And if that's the case, then you might double or triple or quadruple the price of gas, because if you don't, then the first 20 people who show up are going to buy all the gas and leave none for everyone else. And that's what happens in a shortage. Now in this case, what the government of New Jersey decided to do was to introduce a price ceiling, and in this case the price ceiling was $0. So they offered every resident 10 gallons of gas for free. And here's the time where I introduce you to Sharon Sears, who waited 12 hours in line to get her 10 gallons of gas. And when she stepped up and put down her gas cans in order to fill up, the gas attendant called out to the rest of the people, including her, "We are out of gas." I mean, think about that. She waited in line for 12 hours just to get her ration of gas, only to find that it dried up right when it was her turn. Now let me try to explain to you what happened to her with a graph. It is graph time. Okay, here's a supply and demand graph which shows the hypothetical supply and demand for gasoline. Now, in an unregulated economy, here is where equilibrium lives. And let's say that the price of gas before Hurricane Sandy was $3 per gallon. And at $3 a gallon, people are going to demand 10 million gallons of gas. So what this is telling us is that quantity supplied equals quantity demanded at $3. Now let's just say that the government of New Jersey put the price ceiling here at $1 per gallon instead of just giving it away for free. Now watch what happens. At $1 per gallon, here is the quantity supplied and here is the quantity demanded. And so this line right here, that is our price ceiling. And you may be wondering, why is the price ceiling below equilibrium? And here's why. Because the market wants to push the price upwards towards equilibrium, but the ceiling is not going to allow it. So at $1 a gallon, you can see here that gasoline producers are going to produce, let's say, 5 million gallons, but people are going to demand 15 million gallons. So that means people are going to want 10 million more gallons than the gas stations are willing to supply them at $1 a gallon. And that's going to lead us to this area right here, which of course is a shortage. And here's what's infuriating about this. If the price were allowed to go up to equilibrium at $3 per gallon right here, that means in this gap right here, there are 5 million people who are willing to pay $3 per gallon, but who can't get it because it's at $1 per gallon. And this shortage is exactly what we saw in New Jersey. So what are the consequences of these price ceilings? Well, the first is that you have an inefficient allocation of products to consumers. I mean, think about it. In this scenario, if gas is free, then probably everyone is going to go out and get their ration of gas, whether they need it or not. And if they do that, they are going to deplete the supply. But let's say gas station owners jack up the price to $10 per gallon. In that case, only the people who really need gas are going to buy it, and the people who don't really need gas will either buy less gas or no gas at all. So for example, suppose there were two men in the New Jersey scenario. Let's say the first man has a wife who's pregnant and is going into labor at any moment. And so this guy really needs gas in his car so that he can drive his wife to the hospital when she goes into labor. And my guess is that this guy will definitely pay $10 a gallon for gas. But let's say there's a second guy, and that guy is single, he lives alone, he still has power in his house, and he really has no need for gas. If gas costs $10 a gallon, that guy is probably not going to buy it. But on the other hand, if gas is free, that guy is likely to get it because now there's rumors circulating that the state of New Jersey is running out of gas. So in light of that, he's just gonna go get his 10 gallons just in case. Just in case of what? He doesn't know, but just in case. And if that guy gets his 10 gallons for free and everybody gets their 10 gallons for free, then it could be that the guy with the pregnant wife stands in line for 12 hours to get his gas only to find that when he gets there to fill up, it's all gone. So you can see that even at the exorbitant price of $10 per gallon, both men are better off without having the price ceiling enacted. And that leads to the second effect of price ceilings, wasted resources. I mean, if people are waiting in line for hours and hours and hours just to get gas, then consider all the things that they are not doing with those hours, like working and buying and selling and spending time with family. And there is yet a third problem that price ceilings impose, and that is the problem of inefficiently low quality. Now, the classic example of price ceilings is rent control in New York City. In New York, there is a long-standing legislation that prevents landlords from charging over a certain amount for their apartments. So let's say that the equilibrium price for an apartment in New York is $1,000 a month, but the rent control legislation says that a landlord can't charge above $800. And let's just say that there's a leak in this apartment, but because the landlord can't raise his rent to cover repair costs, he does nothing about the leak. So therein lies the problem of inefficiently low quality. And the fourth problem that price ceilings can sometimes introduce is the problem of black markets. I mean, how tempting would it be for one of those gas station clerks to pump an extra gallon of gas in somebody's gas can if they said, hey, I got $100 for you if you pump another gallon of gas in there. And soon, if the shortage lasts long enough and people really want what they're being shorted, then it's a perfect scenario for organized crime to grow some deep roots. Hey, you need some gas? I got a guy. Okay, that was price ceilings. Now let's talk about price floors. Sometimes Daddy Gub'ment steps in to push prices up past equilibrium instead of down. And the classic example of this is minimum wage. Let's get to the graph. Okay, here's a graph representing the supply and demand of workers at different wages. And of course, here is your equilibrium point. And let's say in this market, the equilibrium price for labor per hour is $5. And let's say that at $5, 5 million jobs are filled. So at this point, of course, quantity supplied equals quantity demanded. So everybody who wants a job will get a job at this point. But suppose the government steps in and passes a minimum wage legislation that puts a price floor at $7 per hour. Which is to say, here is the quantity demanded at $7 per hour, and here is the quantity supplied. And this is our price floor. Now, the reason why it's called a price floor, even though it's above equilibrium, is because the price wants to go down to equilibrium, but this legislation, this price floor, is not allowing it to go down any further. So the problem here is that at $7 per hour, that's a much better wage than $5 per hour. So the amount of people who are going to supply their labor will increase, let's say, to 15 million. But at $7 an hour, companies can no longer afford to hire as many people, and so the demand for people to work goes down to 2 million. And this triangle, of course, represents a surplus. So at $7 an hour, more people are willing to work, but less jobs will be available. Now, almost the exact same side effects occur with price floors as with price ceilings. You've got inefficiently low quantity, inefficient allocation of sales among sellers, wasted resources, inefficiently high quality, and of course, illegal activity. Okay, now you may be asking, if price controls are obviously such a bad idea, why does the government do it? And the answer is that price controls do do benefit some people. For example, if the guy with the pregnant wife lives in poverty and could not afford gas at $10 a gallon, then theoretically, that guy could be helped by free gas. And let's say that the market equilibrium wage for labor keeps people in poverty like it did in the 19th century heyday of American industrialism. Then theoretically, a minimum wage would help those workers. But even so, the statistics usually show that price controls frustrate more people than they help. And that's the great debate. Is the frustration for the majority worth it if the weakest members of society can be upheld and flourish? Alright, that's enough for now. I'll see you on the flip side. Alright, thanks for watching. If you think price controls are dumb, then express your economic opinion by hitting that like button below. If you think price controls are great, then give them a thumbs up by hitting that like button down below. And as you know, Big Daddy Gub'ment tracks your every move online, and so they have told YouTube all about you, and they think you're gonna like this video over here. And if you want more videos to help you get a 5 on your AP exam in May, then hit the subscribe button down below, and I will keep making videos for you. Bye.